Hi, I'm Brian from Protog, and today we're going to look at the new Nanlite Forza 60 and particularly compare it to a light that you may have already seen or used or even own, the Aputure 120D2, their new version. Okay, a few things I want to point out straight away that are obviously different about these lights is the Aputure is a standard Bowens mount, whereas the Forza 60 is a micro system. It's a dedicated micro system with a brand new mount that they've designed specifically for the light. The Forza is 60 watt, the Aputure is 120 watt, and we're going to do some readings later to see what that actually means in light output. So what we'll do now is we'll show you the system. That's the light, that's it, complete. The only other thing you need is a battery and or the power supply. So the power supply looks like that and can hang on a stand, plugs into the back of the unit, and they're the two items you need. If you use a battery, well, in fact, they've actually just released a battery grip. So this battery grip goes onto the bottom of the light and plug it into the back. And we have a handheld light, nice and light. You can even piggyback it onto a light stand. Uses 2 NPF batteries, simple little system. Other accessories for the Forza are a dedicated Fresnel lens, comes in this little pouch. They also come with barn doors, which are usually additional to the Fresnel on the Aputure. So that's the Fresnel. You can use it on its own, or you can attach the barn doors. This goes from 10 degrees to 45 degrees. The other dedicated accessory is a softbox. Very high quality softbox, and it's a quick fold system. So you have the mount designed for the Forza, and put the scrim in place. The scrim is a very high quality scrim. It's not a thin one, it's quite milky, gives a nice diffusion. And then easiest way to put a light onto a softbox, in case you've not been shown before, especially with some of the bigger lights, but obviously very easy with a Forza 60, but put the softbox down, find the position, drop it on and turn it. So we've got a lens, we've got a softbox, and we also have a little faceted, very high power, very efficient reflector that comes with the unit. Softbox and the lens and the battery grip are accessories. The reflector and the power supply come with the unit. Nanlite have just released this new RC1 remote. It will control the output of the Forzas, including the 300 and the 500, plus a lot of their other panels. You can adjust from 0, 1% up to 100% remotely, and up to 999 addresses. So we can actually have multiple heads from the one remote and control them from my camera. Right, so let's talk about what we're going to compare today. We're going to compare light output. We're going to compare to see how the Aputure and the Nanlite Forza Fresnels work, and see how optically good or bad they are. We want to see the coverage. We want to see how we can cut those Fresnels, because when you buy a Fresnel, you want the barn doors to be able to cut and give you a nice clean line. You don't want it to be blurred or bent. You really want it to be a clean cut. One of the reasons you actually buy a Fresnel. So we're going to do that comparison. We're also going to do the obvious comparison of size and weight, considerable weight difference. And we'll put that into the specs at the end of the video. Okay, Aputure 120D2, and we've got their new Fresnel that goes from 12 degrees to 45 degrees. The Nanlite Forza 60 obviously doesn't use a Bowens mount, but it's got dedicated accessories. This is their little Fresnel, and it goes from 10 degrees to 45 degrees. Okay, so we've mounted our Fresnels Now we're just going to compare on the studio wall the angle that we're actually getting from the two different Fresnels, and then we'll try cutting it with the barn doors. So we've turned the aperture on and we've got it at the widest setting. And one thing we're noticing straight away is, the dedicated accessories of the Forza at 45 degrees versus 45 degrees. We're noticing that the Forza is a lot wider. In fact, I'd actually say that the aperture is really quite telephoto. I don't think we're getting 45 degrees, even though we've got it on the widest setting. This seems to warm up the light quite a bit, whereas the Forza is staying quite neutral. Okay, now we'll go to spot. I'll show you the range on both lights. So we're now at 12 degrees, and the Forza is 10 degrees. So yeah, we've got a slightly smaller spot effect with the Forza. One of the things you buy a Fresnel for is to cut it, to be able to shape it with the barn doors. So we've put the barn doors onto the Fresnels for the aperture and the Forza, and again, I think you'll see now that the dedicated optic that Forza have created versus the universal one that Aperture use on both their lights really has made a difference. The cutting of the aperture is quite unsharp, muddy even. It gets quite a lot darker towards the edge of the cut, whereas you can see with the Forza, we're getting the shape we want. It's very consistent. It's also, because it's wider, we're actually getting a longer slick of light. So just to point out, the roundness that we're not getting a cut, we're getting a thinning of the cut and quite a drop off in exposure or in light output. Whereas with the Forza, it's virtually square, which is what we want, and consistent. You've got a real slick of light in the middle with a slight bleed off to the edges, whereas this is sort of nearly like a round blob. Okay, so I've got the aperture on 100 at 120 watt versus the Nanlite Forza at 60 watt, and we're noticing that with this cut, the output is pretty close. There's not a lot of difference. So I suppose that what that's showing is the Nanlite optic is very efficient. And we're also noticing quite a lot of color shift towards the end of the cut and exposure change. So you can hopefully see that in the camera, very big difference. Okay, so both lights are on 100%, really to demonstrate that even though this is technically 60 watt versus 120 watt, the optic on the Forza is very efficient, because the light output, actually visually the light output looks a little bit brighter on the Forza. And the other thing to consider is actually a wider angle. So in the middle of the Fresnel cut on the Forza, we got about 130 lux. And if we come to the edge, we are around 98 to 100. So approximately 20% loss towards the end. Okay, so the reading on the aperture in the middle, just move it around to get the highest reading. Okay, so let's call that about 102, 103, and I'll just move to the edge of the cut. And yeah, look, we're down around 35. I'm just gonna fire up the Forza and see what we get with a bare output. We've measured this stand to our lux meter at exactly 2 meters. And okay, with the bare bulb at 100%, we're getting 1040 lux. If we put the reflector on, the Forza 60 reflector is faceted. It's a really highly efficient reflector. Okay, we're up to 3290. Now we'll do a comparison with the Aperture 120, which technically is double the power usage, so it should be double the output. Here we have the Aperture 120 without a reflector, and we're getting 2,100, which is about what we would expect. It's technically 120 watts versus 60, and we're virtually double the output. Now we'll put the reflector on and see what happens. With the supplied reflector from Aperture, we're getting 255. So what we're seeing there is the efficiency of the reflector. The Nanlite reflector is obviously very efficient, it's faceted, and it's perfectly focused. They've spent a lot of time on the accessories, and I think that's the point we really want to make, is the accessories for the Nanlite really make it shine. Just comparing the two remotes, this is the Aperture remote, this is a Nanlite remote. The advantage of the Nanlite remote obviously is it's got an LCD display, so you don't have to go up to the light to see what power it's on. You can actually change channels and directly adjust each light and know exactly what power you're getting at the remote. Okay, so we've been looking at the Aperture 120D2 versus the Forza 60 because they're the two lights that we compared a lot by the marketplace. But on cost alone, we thought we'd bring in the Forza 300 because it's actually in Australia at the moment only $250 more than a 120 watt Aperture light. So what sort of output are we getting from this in comparison? At the moment, bare bowl, on full power, we're looking at 4,340. And now, again, very highly efficient reflector system that Forza have put a lot of effort into. We'll put that on there, and standard Bowens mount, 12,300. So we've really picked up an enormous amount of light with this reflector. In a minute, we'll put the softbox on and we'll do, again, direct comparison. So you can see that what you could be buying when you're looking at spending, around $1,500 versus $1,200. So just in finishing, we've gone through some of the technical differences, and especially with the accessories, because there's a lot of reviews already on the net and unboxings, but we think it's not just about the light, it's about the accessories and how well they work. Obviously, it's a very important part of the system because it is a system. And as you can see, these lights are very small. It's a micro system. It's been designed as a micro system for obvious reasons. It's very simple, lightweight. You're carrying it into a job. If you're going up lifts, you're really making less trips back to your car. And that's really important nowadays, getting in and out quickly. But what we see here, currently at release, these products about $13.49 currently, this product in Australia, including GST, and what you see on the table here would be about the same amount. These retail for $3.99. They're a really well priced micro system. If you wanted to, for the same price as one of these here in Australia, you could buy 3 Forza 60s. It's quite compelling. Build a complete lighting system. Thanks for watching our video, and hopefully you've picked up some answers to some of the questions you've been asking about the system.